So the Supreme Court has lost a lot of favor with the American people due to various scandals that have come out, including involving Clarence Thomas. And there's been scandal after scandal after scandal. I can't even tell you all of them off the top of my head. You'll have to go and look up some of this stuff for yourself. But what we got here is another Supreme Court scandal. Shocker. Okay. We got another scandal involving Samuel Atio, who apparently did not declare gifts from Billionaire with case before U.S. Supreme Court. That's not good. The Supreme Court is supposed to be impartial, or they're supposed to be above politics and above partisanship. Yeah, that's gone out the window. People don't believe that anymore. People haven't believed it really ever since going back to the 2000 Supreme Court case, which handed George Bush the election and threw out 65,000 votes for Al Gore in Florida. But stuff like this just makes it worse and worse and worse for the Supreme Court, to the point that now that only 35% of Americans have a positive view of the Supreme Court, which is absolutely remarkable given this kind of shield of invincibility that has existed around the Supreme Court for many, many, many years now. So let's look at the Guardian article. It says the U.S. Supreme Court Justice Samuel Atio accepted a seat on a private plane owned by the conservative billionaire Paul Singer, flying to Alaska for a luxury fishing trip hosted by another right-wing businessman, then did not declare such gifts or recuse himself when Singer had business before the Supreme Court. Yeah, you heard me read that right. The latest blockbuster report on the tangled subject of Supreme Court ethics came again from ProPublica. God bless ProPublica and the decay and immorality that they are exposing that exists within the Supreme Court. The nonprofit newsroom has already detailed the close relationship between another hardline justice, Clarence Thomas, and the conservative billionaire Harlan Crow. Supreme Court justices are subject to the same ethics rules as other federal judges, but effectively govern themselves. The Chief Justice, John Roberts, has resisted calls to testify in Congress about the Thomas Crow affair. On Wednesday, Dick Durbin, the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and his fellow Democrat Sheldon Whitehouse said that when Congress returns from the July 4th recess, their committee will mark up Supreme Court ethics legislation. The senators said, "We hope that before that time, Chief Justice Roberts will take the lead and bring Supreme Court ethics in line with all other federal judges. But if the court won't act, then Congress must." Damn straight. On Tuesday, Atio published a controversial rebuttal to the new ProPublica report, using a Wall Street Journal column to say the piece was coming and to deny wrongdoing. Atio said justices commonly interpreted ethics laws to mean that accommodations and transportation for social events were not reportable gifts. The seat on Singer's plane, the justice wrote, would have otherwise been vacant. Ah, yes, being wined and dined and being whisked away to luxurious fishing trips on a private jet. That's not worrisome at all. And you're just tagging along. The seat was going to be vacant. Just a Supreme Court justice, just tagging along with my buddy who has business that's going to be coming before the Supreme Court. Just tagging along, on the spare seat. No big deal, right? Virginia Cantor, a former government ethics lawyer, now with Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, said a private plane trip was not an acceptable gift. The exception only covers food, lodging, and entertainment, Cantor told ProPublica. He's trying to move away from the plain language of the statute and the regulation. It says nothing about private plane trips. Nothing in the law says it's acceptable to go on a private jet with a billionaire when you're a Supreme Court justice. It doesn't say that anywhere. Atio said the fishing lodge in Alaska was comfortable but rustic, serving home-style fare. ProPublica said chefs served multi-course meals of Alaskan king crab legs or Kobe filet steak. On the last evening, a member of Altio's group bragged that the wine they were drinking cost $1,000 a bottle, according to a fishing guide. $1,000 a bottle for wine? That's rustic? That's rustic? I go spend $20 on a bottle of wine and it feels like I'm being financially irresponsible. ProPublica detailed how Singer took Atio to Alaska in the summer of 2008 while engaged in a high-stakes case between his hedge fund and the government of Argentina. The case eventually reached the Supreme Court, Atio joining a 7-1 decision against Argentina. Singer denied wrongdoing or discussing business with Atio. Atio said he had never been aware of connections between Singer's businesses and cases before him. No one believes that. Abe Smith, a Georgetown law professor, told ProPublica Atio should have recused himself because of the gift from Singer. If she were representing a client in such a case and found out about the gift after the fact, Smith said, I'd be outraged on behalf of my client. And frankly, I'd be outraged on behalf of the legal system. The right-wing activist Leonard Leo, who has done much to shape the conservative dominance of federal courts, including the Supreme Court, and who recently received $1.6 billion to further his work, accompanied Atio and Singer to Alaska. Leo told ProPublica, no objective and well-informed observer of the judiciary honestly could believe that they decide cases in order to call favor with friends or in return for a free plane seat or fishing trip. Kyle Herring, president of the watchdog Accountable US, said, as the Supreme Court corruption crisis grows with yet another apparent violation of the court's bare minimum ethics codes, it's no surprise that Leonard Leo is right in the middle. He's corrupt. He's the corrupting influence responsible for the rot. As long as Chief Justice Roberts continues to dodge responsibility, public trust in our court will continue to plummet. We need reform now. White House, who has sought to highlight donors' influence on the court, responded to Altio's Wall Street Journal column with incredulity and questions. First, the senator wrote, who orchestrated this weird rebuttal? And did Atio get help from a PR firm? If so, who paid? Second, why dwell on the term facility, as Atio called Singer's plane, but not mention that the personal hospitality reporting exemption is specifically limited to food, lodging, and entertainment? Failing to mention that the other part of the rule wouldn't fly in most courts. Third, why not ask the Financial Disclosure Committee of the Judicial Conference, the body set up exactly for that purpose, for its advice on what should be disclosed? That's why it's there. And what? He just happened to be flying to Alaska and there just happened to be a private jet going to Alaska with an empty seat, and he just happened to find out, like, on some weird billionaire shared ride Uber? Oh, and would that empty seat trick fly with legislative or executive ethics disclosures? Hint, no. And how about the Financial Disclosure Committee? Right, you didn't ask. This just keeps getting worse. ProPublica also reported an earlier Alaskan trip had been taken by another right-wing justice, Antonin Scalia, with Robin Arkley II, the businessman who then owned the fishing lodge and who ProPublica said does not appear to have been involved in any cases before the court. On a visit to the Hubbard Glacier on a boat called the Happy Hooker 4, Scalia, who died in 2016, reportedly mixed martinis from Grey Goose vodka and glacier ice. You cannot make this stuff up. These people are corrupt. Okay, these conservatives in the Supreme Court, they are not impartial. They are not looking out for the American people. They are not just interpreting the law as it was taught to them, and we're just looking at the law that's in front of us, and we're not loaded towards the conservative side at all. We're not gonna try to help them out at all. Nobody believes it. This is why the Supreme Court trust in the Supreme Court is so low. And then these guys have the audacity to go out and complain about, oh, we're being attacked. We can't believe that people see us as impartial, and we're just doing our job as lawyers, and we're as judges, I mean. And we're just completely ineffable and completely above all of this political mudslinging that exists today. They are obviously not above it. We keep seeing instance, an example come out repeatedly that repeatedly shows they are not impartial. And here's another example of it. I'm certain this will not be the last example of it. I am certain we will have more evidence come out about just how corrupt and not impartial our modern day conservative majority Supreme Court in the United States of America is. And ProPublica, good on them. They should continue to keep releasing these articles, because the American people deserve to know what the highest court of our land, supposedly the most sacred court of our land, the American people deserve to know what these people are up to behind closed doors.